Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we're here with another amazing topic of conversation with Robert Siegmann, the owner of the Icebox Cafe. So, Robert, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Gladys, with you.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I born in New York, but raised in Mexico. I spent my first 17 years, the most important formative years, in Mexico City. And upon my graduating from high school, transferred to the United States to go to college. Went through business school and through a series of a lot of different corporate jobs, including Wall Street, mostly in New York. But that's really where I came to understand and realize that my real love and passion was food. So I started my catering company up in New York back in the early to mid 90s. And I had a little catering company in Manhattan. And to be honest, never had worked so hard in my life, but loved it, absolutely loved it.
I can imagine, because catering is one of the toughest jobs I have ever seen. I could never do that. So I really admire everybody that has a catering service. So let me ask you something. You went from catering, and when did you come to Miami?
So I transferred down to Miami in 1997. And at that point decided to open up my first Icebox Cafe. And I would have to look back now and say that I made some pretty bold assumptions, which in the years to follow would prove to have been poorly planned, which was that the catering industry, both the catering industry and the food and beverage retail industry, have food in common, but that's about it. There's a lot of there are more differences than there are similarities. And I kind of jumped into opening up a restaurant thinking that I would learn as I went along, which of course I did, but there was definitely a tall mountain to climb in terms of learning skills.
I call it lessons learned.
Correct.
So you opened the first Icebox, but now you have ventured into restaurants, catering, but you were also telling me that the restaurant business has 3 layers. So tell me what the 3 layers are right now.
Correct. So and if you really look back at our growth, we've now been in business 23 years, which is, I do allow myself a little moment of like Zen, to acknowledge our tenure. It's unusual for a single owner to have a brand that has lasted this long. And when we first started off as a full service restaurant. But within the food and beverage industry, you also have fast casual restaurants and you have grab and go restaurants. We operate and manage all 3 different styles of restaurants. We have a fast casual and a grab and go at the Miami International Airport, but we do have full service restaurants both in South Beach and in Hallandale Beach.
And you moved into the events that catering is part of the event, but you moved into a venue, which is totally a complete different ballgame.
You're absolutely right, Gladys. And when we built out this facility, we built out as a 14,000 square facility, and the primary purpose of it was to create a production site for our catering, to supply our outlets at the airport, to supply our wholesale accounts, but also to supply our vending systems, which we'll get into in a bit. But you're right, we ended up with an event space that is unique and magnificent. So now I'm in events too.
I know. The place is, by the way, the Icebox Cafe in Hallandale is amazing. As an event space is really good. But what really makes you different, and this is where I wanted to gear our conversation, is the technology part. Because you started a vending business, but the vending business is just a machine where I go down and I get my Diet Coke, of course. But yours is completely different. So how did you manage to incorporate the food, the catering, and now technology?
Great question. First of all, I think that one of the things that I understood as we continued to evolve over the years was that in order to remain relevant, we needed to continue to change and adapt and absorb and perhaps reinterpret the trends. Like the real challenge for any kind of brand would be not to remain static, because people's attention span, as we know, over the generations is just getting shorter and shorter. So part of this evolution included, opening up the locations at the airports, as I mentioned. But I always had my eye on what was that cross section between food and technology. And, it became clearer and clearer as the millennials began to show a tremendous interest and adaptability to the use of their phones and computers and technology. At that same time, the vending industry was evolving very quickly. So it wasn't your old-fashioned drop in some coins or push in a dollar bill to get a Diet Coke or a pack of M&Ms. The technology and the software had advanced dramatically, and we saw a very strong opportunity to really showcase our freshly made food in these vending systems and to locate them in places such as universities, hospitals, residential buildings, transportation hubs like airports, train stations. There are other companies doing this, but in South Florida, there aren't. And the advantage that we have over everybody in the market is that we're coming from 23-year history of the food and beverage industry, and we have prepackaged our food for sale for over a decade. So the only aspect of this industry that is new and different for us is the technology side of it. So we're very excited about it. The feedback has been extraordinary.
Wait. Okay, I saw the machine. And literally today, I'm thinking, why don't we have one in my office building? Because instead of getting an M&Ms, I could have had a fresh salad. But so how do you keep it fresh? How long does it last? How does it work?
So, and you're absolutely right. I think more and more people in office spaces are beginning to realize, listen, I want to eat when I want to eat. It isn't just at lunchtime. If I'm going to be staying overtime or into the evening hours, I want to be able to access healthy food. And the other thing that companies are understanding is that they can increase profitability and productivity by ensuring that their employees stay within the building. Even better, don't go far from their desks. So accessing vending machines on the same floor with healthy food is a great way to increase productivity as well. So all of the products that we test out for a 6 to 7 day shelf life. That being said, that we like to err on the side of caution. So we switch out all the products, except the beverages, every 3 days. So every 3 days, that all the food is going to be completely replenished, even the food that has not been sold. The technology, the software that these vending machines have is extremely robust. So we're able to monitor at any given moment what product is selling, what product is not selling. Do we need to make an extra visit to as a location? Because guess what? It all sold out. We are not only capable, but very excited to be making these additional trips because we know then that our product is being very well received.
But wait, what happens, for example, if there's an outage, power outage? Because
So
you
the
have it refrigerated, so what happens then?
Correct. So I'll tell you, inspectors love these systems because the software actually keeps an hourly tally of what the temperature readings are, the interior temperature readings are of the refrigerator. So it really makes it very simple when you have inspections. But at the same time, when there is a power outage or for somebody, inexplicably has unplugged the system, as the temperature begins to rise and reaches a danger zone for an extended period of time, the system will shut down and go into lockdown so that nobody will be able to purchase anything until we go back, remove all the product, and reset the system.
That's really interesting. That's like thinking for us.
Yes.
So
No,
yeah, totally. It's so until you throw out everything that was damaged with the power outage, nobody can buy anything.
correct. And Gladys, these kind of systems and the use of AI, which is the next generation of vending machines, is already widely used all over Asia and to certain extents in Europe as well. United States is a little behind the curve here, but the vending industry is very confident as a whole that this trend of consuming and purchasing healthy food via vending system is only going to grow and grow and grow.
So when you were talking about the productivity within the office, basically your competition is Uber Eats.
Correct.
So why can't I call Uber Eats and just go down? What would be your difference? Why?
So first and foremost, we don't think that this is a replacement to Uber, but maybe another option, so that maybe you're reducing the number of purchases you're making through Uber. And remember, they do charge delivery fees, which of course we don't. So that's one point. The second point, and probably to me the most important, is that you can eat when you want to eat. We've all had experiences with Uber where you place an order, but guess what? The delivery person is running around in circles and it doesn't get to you maybe until an hour later. That kind of flexibility, that kind of ease of purchase is a huge selling point. Pair that up also, Gladys, with the fact that people's consumption habits are not the same as they used to be when we were younger. Nowadays, people eat sporadically throughout the day. Now you have offices which are even more so now after the pandemic. They're going to flex time. It isn't a 9 to 5 schedule. People are coming in at different schedules in order to keep a less populated office, space. So there's a lot of advantages to having a vending system in an office, but I don't believe that it will replace, a Uber Eats entirely.
So where do you go now? Like you're not stopping. So are you looking into, for example, expanding the menu? Do you change the menus? What comes next?
So great point. I mean, this is no different than a menu at a restaurant. If people see the same menu every day, they're going to get bored and lose interest. So we constantly have to refresh the offerings. We constantly are analyzing the data to see what is selling, what is not selling. Why is it not selling? Is it a price point issue? Is it a taste issue? Is it a demographic issue? These are the kind of analyses that we do all the time, and we're constantly developing new products. So our goal really is to really saturate the South Florida market, from all the way down from the southern point of Miami-Dade up through the top point of West Palm, and then grow beyond to the rest of Florida, and then go national with this. It's interesting. It's very interesting that we've gotten a lot of interest for expansion well beyond the Florida borders. Just recently in Minnesota, we've gotten interest in Georgia and Texas. We are obviously very interested, and very bullish, but we are also being very cautious and want to be decisive, small steps to ensure that the quality is never, ever in question here.
That you don't compromise the quality.
Correct.
Like the growing pains.
The growing pains, which are going to come, they're going to come regardless, but as much of that as we can control is, I think, smart.
So let me ask you something. Can this vending machine be put on an event that's like for 1 or 2 days? Is it that flexible? Absolutely.
These are very mobile. We've had some interest for conventions, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
As from an event organizer and a convention organizer's perspective, if you can manage your labor, you are well ahead of the game, especially now in this post-COVID space that we're all living in. In the food and beverage industry, your labor cost is really the highest cost that is driving the industry. So if you're able to control that while still providing an excellent quality, fresh product, that's a win-win situation.
So I was in your restaurant last week and you were well-staffed, well-trained, while a lot of people are searching and praying for labor. Why? What's the difference with your workers, with your staff, as opposed to the other people?
Make no mistake, Gladys, we have struggled tremendously as well. We opened the Hallandale location in October, so right in the middle of COVID. And for the next 6 months, we spent an extremely challenging period trying to find people, trying to retain people. It was very frustrating, mostly because at the same time, remember, Florida had opened and eliminated all restrictions long before most other states around the country did. So as the volume just increased and got busier and busier and busier, the lack of labor made things so much more challenging. So at the end of the day, we know that we disappointed customers, throughout that journey. But our commitment to improving things, our commitment to finding a more stable labor force was always our priority. So fortunately, we're in a better place. But my hearts go out to those who are still struggling. But on any given day, I will tell you, a couple of people don't show up and everything could be upside down again.
But you've had to increase the labor price?
Dramatically, yes. I would say dramatically by no less than 50%, maybe even higher than that. Keep in mind too, that this is at a time when also a lot of your food costs are rising as well. So the typical model that restaurant, food and beverage operators have, operated with, with certain percentages in labor, certain percentages in food costs, and certain percentages in operating costs is all upside down now. And we're having to kind of rejig the formula and find ways to continue to be profitable without only raising prices to the consumer, because that works, but only to a certain extent before you start to disenfranchise your client base. So it's been a very, very challenging time. And that's why, again, I think this automated solution is such a brilliant one.
No, I think it's totally brilliant what you're doing. Robert, we're at the end, and I'm really, really happy that you were able to share the new vision.
Thank you.
This will open a lot of possibilities, for example, for events. Is there any downside, like, for example, if I have an event in a park and I manage to get a connection, can I put the vending machine outside?
No, Actually, that's a great question. This model has not been tested out for the Florida environment, which, keep in mind, is probably others between the humidity, the salt air, and the unpredictable rain and no rain. That cannot be done. But that's the next step. That's definitely the next step.
I can imagine that in 1 or 2 months, I'm going to get a call. Yes, you can put it in the park. Robert, thank you so much. This was very interesting, and the new wave of the food and beverage industry.
You're absolutely right, Gladys, and thank you for the opportunity to chat with you. It's always delightful chatting with you, and any questions or comments you may have, I'm always available. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone, have a great week. Until next time, and above all, stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.